DeShaun Watson, the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, has been suspended 6 games by the arbiter, Jake, of the National Football League.
Yes.
For violating the NFL's conduct policy for all of these accusations surrounding his situation with massage therapy professionals in Houston. And if you are not familiar, which I have a hard time believing, DeShaun Watson is accused of, in the most heinous cases, sexual assault, in at least sexual misconduct in most of these cases. He had 20 plus lawsuits filed against him. Just this morning, it was announced that DeShaun Watson has settled 3 more of those cases, leaving only 1 case outstanding in all of these. DeShaun Watson has settled all now but one of those cases. But just announced moments ago, DeShaun Watson suspended 6 games by the, this former judge that is appointed and agreed to by the NFL and the NFLPA. She has gone over hundreds of thousands of hours of testimony and evidence and statements by these women. And it should be noted that the only witnesses that Judge Robinson took testimony from were the witnesses, or the accusers in this case, if you will, of DeShaun Watson that the NFL investigators spoke to. So there are 6 accusers allegedly that the NFL spoke to. That's the evidence that the judge used to suspend Cleveland Browns quarterback DeShaun Watson 6 games this season for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy. Jake, was this, in your opinion, enough, too much? Where do you come down on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that it feels a bit light for everything that we've gone through in this whole case and in the way it's all happened. I feel like, this has been going on for what seems like forever. I think it's been around a year or so that this has been happening. And it feels like 6 games, to be honest with you, is a little light. I was hoping for like 8 to 10. I felt like that was a pretty just number. I felt like, anything over 10 was heavy-handed, but I felt like that 8 to 10 range was a really nice spot for this situation with DeShaun Watson. The problem is, and where things kind of get a little awry in this case, is that NFL owners who have done similar things to what DeShaun is being accused of doing didn't get suspended. There was no discipline from the NFL, and obviously the best example of this is Bob Kraft and his whole situation. So I just think that, is it too much? Is it too little? I felt like 6 games was a bit light, if I'm being honest, but I think that based on the precedent and based on the fact that Bob Kraft didn't get any suspension or discipline, and based on the fact that this type of situation with how this went down with DeShaun and what he did hasn't really been seen in the league before, I felt like 6 was kind of light. Now, if you look at the NFL's history of, domestic violence and everything, over the past, all the names that we all know, the Kareem Hunts of the world, the Greg Hardys, the Ray Rices, all those guys and what they did. To me, that precedent, if I'm the NFL, would have led me to kind of want to set a standard here and set an example with DeShaun and say, hey, it is 10 games. But again, it's not up to Roger Goodell. It was up to Sue Robinson. So we'll see. The only question that remains is how the NFL is going to handle this ruling now.
Yeah, and I think one of the big questions is, will the NFL and Roger Goodell appeal this suspension? This is where things get a little awkward, in that the NFL can't appeal this, but who are they appealing it to? They'd be appealing it to themselves, because Roger Goodell, in all likelihood, would be the appeals officer, as is set up in the NFLPA and the NFL's, collective bargaining agreement. Roger Goodell has the final say here. So if they want DeShaun Watson to be suspended further, they can appeal it, and Roger Goodell will make a decision on that and essentially make the decision to suspend DeShaun for a year, which is what I think I've said from the beginning. I believe that DeShaun should be off the field for a year. I don't know why I keep messing that up, but I feel like DeShaun should have been taken off the field for a year. And I think the NFL agrees. They do not want him to play that road game in Houston. They do not want the circus atmosphere that would certainly follow DeShaun back to Houston should he go with the Browns to play there. Well, guess what? Now with 6 games, he's going to be, if they don't appeal, he is going to be in Houston to take on the Texans. So that is certainly something to think about. But this goes back to what NFL players have said for many years, that it is unfair that Roger Goodell, no matter what, at the end of the day, is the judge, jury, and executioner in these cases. And I would agree with that. I think it is really unfair, and it is really balanced with an independent arbitrator making this decision, and then you go ahead and say, well, we don't like that decision, so we're going to make a different one. That feels unjust, but that is what the players agreed to. So it's kind of hard to go back and argue about that now. My feeling on this is that Roger Goodell is going to appeal this, and Roger Goodell is going to extend this suspension. And, Jake, I would not be surprised if they gave DeShaun Watson an entire year.
Yeah, and I think the only I completely agree with that. I think a year is not out of the question. I think the only other consideration for the National Football League and Roger Goodell is how long do you want the saga to continue? How long is the league going to have to deal with this situation? I mean, obviously this morning with this ruling coming out is obviously the next step in the process, and now it's on Roger Goodell's plate, but I just feel like this has been such a long thing. Like, it's been, he sat out all of last season. Now he's going to sit out a lot of this season, if not the entire season, depending on how Roger Goodell handles it. And so to me, I find myself sitting here just saying, man, like, how long is the league wanting to deal with this? I mean, I know it's not a matter of convenience for the league, certainly. It's not a situation where you're saying to yourself, hey, we're going to accept this ruling because we want to get this done and over with. I know that's not the approach they're taking, obviously, but I just feel like if this goes on the whole season, what are we all going to be talking about? Well, it's going to be Jacoby Brissett or Josh Rosen for the Cleveland Browns. And what if they had, DeShaun? That's what everyone's going to be talking about. So for me, I feel like if I'm Roger Goodell, I'm probably not handing out a year. I'm probably handing out like half the season, which we're a little below that right now. So again, I'll just maintain, I think what's realistic in the world we live in is probably 10 games, but I'm with you. Hey, if they give him a year, I'm not gonna pitch a fit over that, because I do think that is still just.
Yeah, I think that the biggest issue I have with this is it's 25 different accusations.
Yeah.
Now, Tony Busby, the attorney that's representing most of these women, listen, you can say what you want, but it almost doesn't matter how you come to it. It's 25 women that are accusing DeShaun Watson of really different crimes of a sexual nature. And in the NFL, where you have a stigma of violence against women, where we have multiple cases of heinous domestic violence, including, spousal abuse, murder. I don't see how you can go light on this. I don't see how you can go light when you have a situation where the reputation of the league is on the line. And again, if you're just tuning in this morning, DeShaun Watson has been suspended for the first 6 games of the season for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy related to these 25 different civil lawsuits. And I think that's an important distinction to make here. It is 25 civil lawsuits. The police in Houston investigated these charges and chose not to file criminal charges, mainly because a lot of these women chose not to cooperate with the police, but instead file civil cases for financial settlements with Tony Busby against DeShaun Watson. And again, if you're also just tuning in this morning, 23 of these cases were filed. He has now, DeShaun Watson, settled all but one of those cases. So, I mean, he is really trying to get this taken care of right now. But those civil suits and those settlements meant almost nothing to the NFL and NFLPA arbiter who heard this case. She suspended him this morning 6 games, which means that based on what the Cleveland Browns schedule is, if you look at it, the games that Watson will miss, because remember, he can play in the preseason and he can be involved in training camp and practices right up until the Monday before week 1, when the official league begins, the league year begins, and players actually report to team facilities the Monday before week 1. That's when DeShaun Watson will be suspended for at Carolina, the Jets, the Steelers, which is a primetime Amazon Thursday night football game, by the way, at Atlanta, home for Los Angeles, the Chargers, and then home for New England. DeShaun Watson's first game back would be October 23rd, a Sunday, at Baltimore against the Ravens.
Yeah.
This is a big time blow for the Cleveland Browns. But again, if I'm Roger Goodell, how do you not go through the appeals process that's set forth? And how do you not take him off the field for December 4th, Sunday, December 4th at the Houston Texans?
Yeah, I think it's, and that's what I mean. I think there's a lot of considerations if you're the league and you're Roger Goodell. I mean, on one hand, I could see him saying, hey, you know what? Sue Robinson, came down with this decision, and I do think it matters that Sue Robinson is a woman making this decision on a case that is, violence against women, like indiscretions against women. I think that absolutely matters. So I could see Roger Goodell just saying, hey, yeah, we're going to go with this because that's her decision. On the other side, I could definitely see, I completely agree, I could totally see Roger Goodell saying, no, we're going to appeal this, we're going to take control of this, and we're going to make an example out of DeShaun. And yeah, we are going to take him off the field for Houston. We are going to take him off the field, for the Steelers, the Ravens, and Houston. Like, I could definitely see that taking place. So I think it literally just is a matter of choice if you're Roger Goodell. And I think, again, referencing the NFL's track record with this type of thing, they've been pretty poor at decision making and timing and sort of how they go about disciplining these guys. There have been countless examples. Again, the Ray Rices, the Kareem Hunts, the Greg Hardys. Like, there are so many, examples, obviously, where they just haven't handled it well. I look at the Ezekiel Elliott thing. You didn't handle that well. I just feel like the NFL has to set a standard here. You got to make an example out of DeShaun Watson, and it's so funny. In the vaunted pre-show meeting, behind the scenes, we were talking about the fact that the NFL really is the only league we have that has issues with violence against women. Obviously, the NBA is currently dealing with the Mikal Bridges situation, or the Miles Bridges situation, excuse me. But other than that, what other issues does the NBA have with violence against women? I look at Major League Baseball. There are really not very many examples of violence against women, I look at the NHL. There's not many examples of violence against women. So that's why I say this is a uniquely NFL problem, and I think it is a unique responsibility of Roger Goodell to set the standard and say, hey, we're not tolerating this anymore. If you're going to commit crimes, if you will, or do heinous things to women, you are going to pay the price. That's what I think needs to happen here. So if I'm Roger Goodell, I am appealing this. I am giving him at least 10 games, if not the whole year. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I think if I'm Roger Goodell, I'm suspending him a year. I just don't know how you allow DeShaun Watson to play a game this year, especially, December 4th at Houston. The Cleveland Browns are in Houston on December 4th. I just think it's such a circus that you would allow DeShaun Watson to play in that game. I don't know how you would do that, especially with the rehashing of the ugly exit from Houston, the rehashing of all the charges. I just don't see how that makes sense for the NFL. I think they're going to push for a year at a minimum. Let's get your comments in here this morning as we react to the breaking news that DeShaun Watson has been suspended for the first 6 games of the season for sexual misconduct charges that essentially equal, according to the arbitrator, a violation of the NFL's personal conduct policy. He will miss the first 6 games of the year. And again, if you missed it, on the screen right now are the first 6 games of the season for the Cleveland Browns. I just think it's not enough. I mean, I really think it's not enough. The NFL has to take him off the field for a year. I don't know how you don't.
And I think an interesting question, one other thing that I think is interesting is if you're the league and you're Roger Goodell, does DeShaun Watson missing all of last year even matter? Because I don't think it really should even matter. I think that was just part of the process. You had to sit out because this had to be adjudicated. Like, you had to figure this out. You had to work through this, and it had to be investigated. Like, that's part of the process. And by the way, while you were sitting out, you were getting paid. So I don't think last year should matter, but
really?
I don't think it should matter. I think that when you do things like this, because for the longest time I felt like, okay, will the suspension be retroactive? He's already missed a whole year, right? And they've sent this to Sue Robinson, who now has said, hey, he's got 6 games. That's what I'm giving him. So to me, when you do what DeShaun Watson is being accused of doing, the process with which you miss time as it's being investigated should not count for the discipline that you're going to get. That's part of the process. The league can't have you on the field when you've done what you're being accused of doing. So that portion of time that you missed, in my opinion, should not be counted. I think that what we're talking about today, the 6 games and the league appealing and them coming up with a decision, which I do think they will do, that's what I think the main focus for the league needs to be. But I'm curious how the league handles that. Do they consider last year?
Yeah, I don't think they do. I think they want the hammer. I think the NFL, and again, I don't mean to be redundant. I know I've said this. I think the NFL needs to take a hard stance in crimes against women. This is a violent league playing a violent sport relating to men being violent.
Yes.
And they take that home from work. And there is a track record of NFL players abusing women, murdering women, violently assaulting women. And let's not forget that Henry Ruggs with the Las Vegas Raiders, with this DUI, he is on trial for vehicular manslaughter. A woman died in that crash. His girlfriend or his female companion in his Corvette was seriously injured in that crash. This is not going to pass. This is going to be a situation, in my opinion, where the NFL is going to step up, appeal this suspension, and I believe DeShaun Watson will not play a game this year. I think Roger Goodell, who, by the way, as everybody's been saying, Roger Goodell works for the owners in the NFL, including Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Cleveland Browns, who went out of his way to sign DeShaun Watson to a groundbreaking contract, which had never been seen before, a fully guaranteed contract for a quarterback facing a massive suspension in the middle of a massive black eye for the NFL. Jimmy Haslam gave DeShaun Watson a fully guaranteed contract. Mm-hmm. I don't think the NFL looked kindly on that. I don't think the other owners. I don't think Roger Goodell. And by the way, the other thing that you can't forget here is you have owners in this league as well who have been involved in crimes against women, most notably Bob Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, caught in that massage parlor sting.
Yes.
You look at these situations and you're starting to feel like, yeah, there's quite a bit of hypocrisy going on around the NFL right now related to the way that they adjudicate crime and suspension and penalties from coaches and owners. And there seems to be a line that differentiates that group from the players.
Yes.
It would be, in my opinion, it's going to be an awfully difficult, sales pitch to Jimmy Haslam to say we're taking your quarterback off the field for a year. And frankly, I think there's a lot of other owners. I would guess that you would get 3 to 6 owners who would agree with Jimmy Haslam on this.
Yeah, no, I think that no matter what, as we lay this out there, it's a no-win situation for the league. And what I mean is that if you suspend DeShaun for any amount of time in this situation, you have egg on your face because you didn't suspend Bob Kraft or any of the other owners, right? But then if you suspend DeShaun heavy, let's say you gave him the whole regular season, he could come back for the playoffs, just as an example off the top of my head. Well, then you still have egg on your face because Jimmy's going to be pissed. The owners are going to be pissed. Like the people you work for are not going to be amused. So that's why I say this is the issue. So if you're Roger Goodell and you've had what has it been, 14 months or whatever it's been to kind of figure out your stance on this, I just hope that they're strong in whichever way that they go.
All right, let's get your comments in here. Tanner Plummer first in. DeShaun Watson gets 6 games and loses just 0.14% of his $230 million salary. That doesn't sound right either. But there's also a lot of conversation around the league that the reason that DeShaun Watson chose the Cleveland Browns is because they were willing to guarantee him that money, which would also make him whole from the settlements that he is signing with these accusers. So, listen, Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Browns, has not exactly been, controversy-free himself. Mm-hmm. I believe he owns the Love's Truck Stop brands and others. He has had a credit card, fee issue. And I'm telling you, this league has a history of dirty deals. And I think this is another one of those. And Tanner, I think your previous point where you said Calvin Ridley gets suspended for a year for betting on NFL games, Watson gets suspended 6 games for sexual misconduct, that doesn't sound right.
It's a great point. I mean, and that's what I mean. Like, the NFL is a league of hypocrisy. It always has been, and unfortunately, my belief is it always will be. A small portion of me hopes that changes in the next couple of days, but somehow I doubt that.
Yep. Ryan Scandura, good morning, Ryan, says, LOL, if Goodell had his way, Watson would be playing the full season. Oh, I doubt that. I think Roger Goodell wants – I think if Roger Goodell had his way, DeShaun Watson would never see the field in the NFL ever again. I firmly believe that. I think Roger Goodell is a lot of things. He is not unintelligent. He is a savvy veteran operator. He understands what's at stake here for the NFL. Image, marketing, advertising dollars, relationships, those are all at stake here. I think the main reason, if you're Roger Goodell, that you're going to suspend DeShaun Watson is image. I don't think there's any doubt about it. Perception is reality in this game, and I don't think there's any doubt either that Roger Goodell is well aware of that. He is well aware that this league has a history of essentially allowing men to abuse women and get off with light penalties. The only guy that really paid a price for what happened in his life was Ray Rice, who never played in the NFL again. So my feeling is that, yeah, this is going to be a heavy price for DeShaun Watson. Cohen Wiley says, I do love how more than half the league in the NBA is very, very good and more spread out than a few years ago when there was a trend to start super teams. We will talk a lot of NBA, which is why I chose that comment. A lot on the Jazz and the Knicks, a lot on Kevin Durant coming up on the show as well. But we're talking about this situation where DeShaun Watson has been suspended for the first 6 games of the season this morning for his situation with these 25 women that have accused DeShaun Watson of sexual misconduct. Some, alleging heinous sexual crimes by DeShaun Watson against them in these civil suits. The arbitrator this morning, a former federal judge, has handed down a 6-game suspension, which feels incredibly light to me. It almost feels like no penalty at all.
Right.
And the question that I guess I wonder about is DeShaun Watson getting a free pass on this situation? It feels like he is. There will be no criminal case. He will not even have to worry about going to jail. He has got a $230 million fully guaranteed contract with the Cleveland Browns after, mind you, all of this came to light. And now he only gets a 6-game suspension, which, financially is nothing to him.
Right.
This feels like he is getting away with this scot-free.
Yeah, I think, he is. I think that it's tough because I think if you're Deshaun Watson and you're in his camp, you're saying, hey, this isn't criminal. I'm not being charged with anything. Nothing has really happened outside of the fact that I'm essentially admitting guilt by settling all these cases. So I think if you're him, you're saying, yeah, this is heavy no matter how you look at it. But my opinion is yeah, it's light because I've always maintained that, professional athletes, specifically athletes who are big names, who are key to their team's success, like a quarterback in the NFL, I think you have a certain responsibility off the field. And unfortunately, DeShaun clearly doesn't understand that. You don't get the luxury of just doing whatever the hell you want to do to whoever the hell you want to do that to. That's not how this works.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
It's crazy.
It is remarkable. Zayman says, 2 complaints against you. It's now a trend. How in the world did it get to 25 before anybody noticed? That's my question.
Yeah.
And by the way, I would note that the Houston Texans have settled with all of these women. The Texans likely knew what was happening.
And nothing will happen to them.
Yeah, my opinion is there's no way to escape the fact that when your star quarterback is flying in massage professionals from other states to have one-on-one interaction with them in a hotel suite downtown, you had to know that was going on. You had to, if you're the Houston Texans, know this was happening. He then And the other thing I think is important here is the owners of the Houston Texans, the McNair family, are good friends with this attorney that's representing these women against DeShaun Watson, Tony Busby. Tony Busby and the late Mr. McNair and Cal McNair, the current owner of the Houston Texans, were neighbors. So there is a very intimate relationship there. And the other thing that I think is important to note, because I think context is huge here. All of this happened once DeShaun Watson asked for a trade and said he would never play for the Texans again. Then all of a sudden, this attorney that's close friends with the ownership of the Texans started unearthing all of these women who then out of nowhere didn't want to file criminal charges but wanted to file civil suits against DeShaun Watson.
Hey, guys.
What this felt like to me, and I don't know this to be fact, it's my opinion. What it felt like to me in this case from the beginning was that when DeShaun Watson said, I'm never going to play for you again, trade me or I'm going to sit out, the Houston Texans said, okay, well, we're going to damage you permanently. And they went to Busby and they looked for dirt. And I don't think they knew what they were going to find necessarily, 25 women. They knew he was doing this with women in hotels.
Here's the game plan.
Which is why when the Tony Busby came knocking, notice there were no civil lawsuits filed. Notice there were no big to-dos about, hey, we're taking the Houston Texans to trial. There were quiet settlement negotiations that were quickly concluded.
Yeah.
Because they're all friends. Tony Busby and the Houston Texans know each other.
Well, let's talk about it. I'm a good listener.
So it was easy to settle those cases.
Yep.
So there were no endorsement deals that were lost forever. There were no, threats of criminal complaints to bring people to the negotiating table on the civil level. I do think a big part of this is the Houston Texans railroading DeShaun Watson. I don't think there's any doubt. Now, does that excuse what he did? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Is DeShaun Watson stupid? Yes, he is. Did DeShaun Watson do all of the things he's accused of? Probably not. Did he do most of them? In my opinion, he did. Does he deserve 6 games? No, he deserves an entire season. But let's not, throw under the rug the fact, sweep under the rug the fact that my opinion is that the McNair family had a big hand on this coming to light.
Yeah, I mean, we would be naive to think that an organization on the level of an NFL team had no idea. I mean, that's just naive thinking. To me, the minimum is they knew about it. They probably didn't do much about it initially because it wasn't a problem. Nobody in the public knew about it. And I think that, NFL teams, specifically, again, with quarterbacks, this would be different if we were talking about a long snapper, right? Nobody would give a damn. The guy would just be cut, and we'd say, see you later. But because it's a starting quarterback, there's a certain point you get to where you have to start caring. So it is an interesting situation, but I don't think nothing's going to happen to the Texans. That much is clear.
Yeah, I think it's over for the Texans now. I as soon as they settled those cases, and my guess is, and again, I don't know this, it's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I think the Houston Texans were looking to pay settlements. They wanted it to be known that they settled with these women. They gave them a financial settlement. We are admitting our wrong here. We had responsibility. Here, take our money.
Oh, my God. We had no idea that this was happening. But, hey, it's our guy. It's our quarterback. It's our responsibility. Let us fix this. Let us help you. Let us take care of this. Putting it, basically, my opinion is, just on everything you've just laid out, is that they tried to put themselves in a positive light. Like, hey, we're being good guys here.
But at the point that they did this, there's financial gain for them.
Yeah.
They make billions of dollars a year being an NFL team.
Yeah.
My guess is the settlement's a tax write-off. There was a gain here for them.
Yeah.
They won. DeShaun Watson lost. They won. And I don't think there's any way to fix that. DeShaun Watson could win the next 10 MVPs and Super Bowls. And he's always going to be the guy that had 25 civil cases filed against him for sexual assault by massage professionals who made really terrible accusations. It doesn't matter what he does. He is tainted forever.
Yes.
Forever. So, I mean, you could sit here and say what you want. The Houston Texans won here. The Houston Texans absolutely won in this DeShaun Watson case. It's breaking news this morning. DeShaun Watson has been suspended for the first 6 games of the season by the neutral arbitrator hearing the case between the NFL and the NFLPA. The next step in this case is one of two things. The NFL accepts that punishment, and everybody goes about their business. The NFLPA has said they will not appeal, that they just want, they want to put an end to this, and DeShaun Watson has agreed to that. So the NFLPA, will not appeal. The question is, what does Roger Goodell and the NFL do? Do the owners, and don't forget, when I say Roger Goodell, the owners of the National Football League teams, that's who Roger Goodell represents. Will the other owners and Roger Goodell file an appeal to this 6-game suspension, and will they be looking for more?
For real.
My guess is they will. Adam Schefter from ESPN is reporting that the NFL does not want DeShaun Watson to play in that game in Houston. They do not want him making that trip back to Houston, and that they wanted a full year's suspension. They got 6 games.
I just don't think that a full year is ridiculous. On a surface,
No.
when you first say it, you're like, well, that feels heavy. But then you start thinking about it. You're like, yeah, dude, a full year is pretty warranted considering it's 25 women.
Yeah.
Dude, like there has to be, again, the NFL has to set a standard here. You've got ESPN on Get Up this morning laying out the fact that DeShaun is going to get, a gazillion dollars a year on this fully guaranteed contract. Like, you have to set a standard here.
But again, I think it matters. Did you see how his contract is structured? The Cleveland Browns absolutely did a sweetheart deal with DeShaun Watson. So go back in time a little bit here and remember exactly where DeShaun Watson was. He had demanded a trade. He said, I'll never play for the Browns or for the Houston Texans again.
Yeah.
All these lawsuits happen. He's in purgatory. He does not play last year. He is away from the NFL and the team last year.
Getting paid.
But he gets paid.
Yes.
He gets paid. Then they trade him to the Cleveland Browns and get a new deal done that's $230 million guaranteed. But all he gets in base salary this year is $1 million. So the only money he loses this year is $1 million. All the other years of the contract are $20+ million. The Browns and DeShaun Watson knew this suspension was coming. That's why they negotiated the contract the way they did. DeShaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns made a sweetheart deal. I think that's part of the reason that the NFL is A, going to go after him further and will appeal this suspension. And B, I think it's also part of the reason that DeShaun Watson signed with the Browns, because they were willing to structure a new contract like that. So my feeling is that the NFL is going to go after its pound of flesh, and they want his entire $1 million contract this year, or his entire $1 million base salary this year. And they don't want him playing football in Houston.
Yeah, and it's really curious. I mean, that's a great point you make. And if that is the case, what do you do about Jimmy? I think that, clearly this deal, the way it's laid out and what you've just explained kind of says through action and the way it's structured that Jimmy Haslam feels like, hey, DeShaun, you got railroaded. Let me take care of you because I can. So if you're the NFL, obviously there's not much you're going to do with Jimmy, but I just think, again, I'm just going to keep saying it. You can make an example out of DeShaun Watson, and there's really nothing he can do about it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think it's incredible. It is incredible. Giggity, comment dump. Giggity says the NFL won't appeal. They don't really care about women. Look how they drag their feet with that slime ball Dan Snyder. Well, and that's part of the thing here.
Yeah.
Is that Dan Snyder still owns the Washington Commanders. And Dan Snyder was allowed to dodge a subpoena from Congress with no penalty. Dan Snyder was allowed to only testify in Congress by video of his own volition, so that it was, I was not subpoenaed. I testified willingly. Do you guys know that happened with Dan Snyder? The only reason that Dan Snyder agreed to testify is because he said, I'm doing it willingly. Dan Snyder did not want the stigma of dodging a congressional subpoena, even though He dodged a congressional subpoena
Yeah.
by living on a boat in the middle of the ocean so that he could not be served. That's what NFL owners do. They get privilege. They get a pass. That's the way the NFL works. They're billionaires. They're sheltered. Absolutely, Deshaun Watson's there. I would be shocked if the NFL did not appeal this suspension.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked. My gut is, and what my opinion is that Roger Goodell's going to suspend him for the entire year. They will appeal. Roger Goodell, by the way, is the arbitrator in those appeals. He's the decision maker. They will appeal. Roger Goodell will rule and suspend Deshaun Watson for an entire year, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I just think that's the way this is going to go. And frankly, I would be surprised if it went any other way. A drinking and cigar journey with Eric Leatham gives us a $3 tip this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Let's see. James Knight says, wake me up once we begin the sports chat.
Okay, great. We'll see you in a while.
We'll see you in a while, I guess. Is this not sports chat? I don't know. Tanner Plummer says, I remember the Eagles being interested in Watson this past offseason. Boy, am I glad they didn't make that deal. I would agree with that.
I just think, the more I think about it, the more I feel like the Browns are counting on us all forgetting this in like 2 seasons. If you think about it, Kareem Hunt is perfectly fine, right? Like, these other guys, Ezekiel Elliott's completely fine.
Kareem Hunt on tape kicking a woman.
Yeah, just fine.
In the lobby of a hotel. Ezekiel Elliott, star back for the Dallas Cowboys, accused of essentially holding a woman against her will in an apartment, and like heinous crimes against women.
Yeah.
No penalties really. No punishments of any kind.
And now just living their best life, on Hard Knocks, getting paid. Like, this is what I mean. I truly feel like the Browns are counting on us just forgetting and just moving on.
I think so.
And that's why I think ultimately the NFL, not that that's probably a consideration for them, but I think that's another reason why he should get a year so that people don't forget.
Yeah. Interesting. A drinking and cigar journey with Eric Leatham says, Deshaun Watson is a great QB. When you have all this money, what makes him do something like this? Why do powerful men always wind up falling at the feet of sex?
Because when you
women?
have all that money is not a consideration for you. It's not like you're saying, oh yeah, well, damn, I'm going to lose $1 million this year. I got 229 more though. Like, he doesn't care. It doesn't matter, and that's the thing. These guys think they can do whatever they want, and that's just not the case.
Ryan Scandura says, I think that's true about his legacy being tarnished. Ben Roethlisberger was celebrated. The league didn't care about his accusations.
You see what I mean?
And if you don't remember, Ben Roethlisberger, the now retired king of thickness at quarterback, was accused by multiple women of sexual assault in a bar in a college town. I mean, just terrible accusations. And really nothing was ever done about it. Nothing was ever done about it. Ryan Buckley, good morning, too. He says, all athletes are privileged. Look at Brittany Griner. Went to Russia on more than one occasion and brought drugs. Caught. Well, okay. She didn't bring drugs. She had cannabis oil, which she had a prescription for, but which is illegal in Russia. I think Brittany Griner would have gotten caught for something. They were looking for somebody. So I don't know that I would go that far. I really don't think I'd go that far. Mike Maple says, too bad the Browns aren't on Hard Knocks this year. Seriously. Compass just keeps trying. He says Knicks. We'll get there eventually. So let me ask you this. Is this not a big story? I'm amazed by the fact that so many people are like, nah, not a big story, not surprised. This is no big thing. Like,
out of 10 in the comments, how important is this story to you and your sports fandom?
I think it's a huge story.
Yeah, I think it's super important. Obviously, we've got a whole conversation we're going to have on the New York Knicks and the Utah Jazz, obviously. But this is breaking news. We've been waiting for this for weeks, for a year at this point. Like, we've been speculating on this for a long time, and I just think it matters. I think that we would be doing it injustice not to talk about it when it comes out 5 minutes before the show starts. Obviously, we talk a lot of basketball on this channel, but when this type of thing comes out, you have to talk about it. So I appreciate everybody here for Nick's Jazz, but this is something that's important in my opinion. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Like in the comments, let us know.
Yeah, let's see. So let's run through them. They're actually dropping numbers for you, Jake. Dax Johnson, good morning. Dax says 5.
Okay.
Clutch Kicks says 7.
Okay.
Main Event 628 says about a 3.
So not as important.
Mr. Vargas says a 7.
More important.
Strange Clouds says a 4.
Again, not as important.
Dax revises and says maybe a 6. Cohen Wiley says 2.
Okay.
2? Tanner Plummer says this story is a 10 out of 10 for me, but you're also a huge football fan. Dop Hop says it's a top 10 story. You know, okay. Sean Mirzinski says, I mean, it's important, but not a shock. That's the thing. Well, that's probably true.
But here's the thing. Yeah, you're totally right. It's not a shock, but I think we're not sitting here saying it's shocking. What we're saying is that this conversation in sports overall, like, setting the correct precedent, sending the right message, that's what really matters. Like I look at, a similar sort of situation, if you will, from a media standpoint, is this LIV PGA thing and everything that's gone down with that. Like that type of thing, when your reputation's on the line, when your image is on the line as a league, I think it's really important to talk about it. When Tiger Woods was banging Perkins waitresses out back, like, we were all talking about it for good reason. He lost sponsorship over this. He lost a massive amount in his image over it. Like, I just think that when male athletes who are massive stars, which DeShaun Watson definitely was, when they do things against women like this, you can't just skip over it. I just don't think that's the right thing to do.
No, I would totally agree with that. I think it is a big deal. Barfing Chicken says 7.
Yeah.
Dax Johnson says, okay, Jake, you talked me into a solid 7.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. DJ Lopez says people probably aren't surprised because it's nothing new in the NFL. They always drop the ball on things like this. Good Lord, yes, they do.
But have they dropped the ball on this particular one yet? Because I feel like right now they haven't dropped the ball yet.
I'm surprised. You know what I'm surprised about? If we're gonna say that they dropped the ball, I'm surprised the NFL hasn't done anything yet. Like, I'm surprised that the NFL essentially took no action early on in this case. They didn't put him on the administrative list. They didn't take him off the field. Nothing. You had multiple women early in this case. It was 7, then 10, then 15, now 20. And the NFL never took him off the field or kept him away. How is he on the practice field with the Cleveland Browns when all of this is still pending and you know what he did and you allowed him to settle? How did you not take him off the field while this was being adjudicated by this arbiter? That to me is what's surprising, that the NFL didn't do more earlier when you knew what was going on.
Yeah, I think that's always been the disappointing part about the NFL.
Yes.
They've never been a proactive league, and this is one of my main gripes specifically with Roger Goodell and the ownership group. They've never been a proactive league. They've always been a reactive league. Hey, let's allow DeShaun for years on end to fly all these women out, to do all these heinous things.
And you knew because the Texans were dirt bags.
Yes.
You knew they had dirt on DeShaun. You knew what he was doing. Why else would you have settled that case?
But we're going to let him keep doing it. And then once it comes out publicly, we're going to ruin this guy's legacy, reputation, his image. We're going to handle it that way. And then we're also going to let the image of the league take a beating as well in that process. That's what I've always had an issue with.
Big Dog O-Town gives us a $5 tip. Big Dog, what's up? Good to see you. He says, some powerful men have protection, whereas others don't. Far out being powerful, y'all know what's up. Money is not power. Money is the access to power. Money is the access to influence. You have to have, Bob Kraft is powerful.
Right.
DeShaun Watson is not. DeShaun Watson, and I know this is probably going to piss a lot of people off, but DeShaun Watson is a young black man who works at the whim of powerful older white men who are billionaires. DeShaun Watson's a millionaire who plays in a league owned by billionaires.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that. He is a young black man, and in my opinion, he made some really stupid choices and committed heinous acts against women, 6 games is not enough. 6 games is not enough, in my opinion. But DeShaun Watson forgot who he was and where he was.
Yeah, in this angle, not to cut you off, but this angle, so Caitlin Collins, a CNN reporter, is retweeting something that Clay Travis had said, the whole Calvin Ridley angle. So I think the Calvin Ridley thing, my point with that is it's just getting a lot of traction. I think a lot of people are frustrated, like Tanner was, that Calvin Ridley got an entire year for $1,500 on gambling, and DeShaun's got 6 games.
But that's on paper.
It is, and
that's a great
point.
Rule.
That's a great point.
The rule is in place.
Yeah, that's a great point.
The rule is in place.
Yep.
We haven't suspended anybody in baseball for steroids. Pete Rose has never been back in the game since his gambling suspension.
Facts.
It's on paper.
Yeah.
That's the rule.
Yep.
What rule says DeShaun Watson, hey, you get this many games for doing? Where's the rule in the rule book that says, hey, when you have 25 civil lawsuits against you for sexual assault, that's 6 games.
Well, and I think, the one rule that people reference is the violating the personal conduct policy in the NFL. I believe the rule says it's a minimum of 6 games. I think I'd have to verify that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And that's the trouble with this. Like, that's why I say Roger Goodell has a responsibility here. You can't just let it be 6 games. Like, that's not good enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting. Again, just to recap before we get to Knicks and Jazz here, DeShaun Watson suspended 6 games for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy this morning by the, I don't know, what would you say?
Independent arbiter.
Independent arbiter. Chosen, this former federal judge was chosen by both the NFLPA and the NFL. They agreed to have her as the arbitrator in this case. She ruled this morning that DeShaun Watson will be suspended 6 games to start the season. Those 6 games are at Carolina, home for the Jets and Steelers. That Steelers game is a Thursday night football game on Amazon. At the Falcons, home for the Chargers, home for the Patriots. DeShaun Watson, as of today, will return week 7 at the Baltimore Ravens. It is widely expected that NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell will, in fact, appeal this suspension, which is perfectly within his right or the NFLPA's right to do. The issue is that Roger Goodell is the final decision maker on all appeals. So if it is appealed, if the NFL owners decide to appeal, Roger Goodell will make the decision.
Yeah.
And it is widely expected the NFL will appeal and DeShaun Watson will be suspended for the 2022 season because December 4th, the Cleveland Browns travel to Houston to take on the Texans.
Yeah.
And the NFL does not want DeShaun Watson playing in that game. So it is widely agreed or believed that Roger Goodell and the owners will appeal and Roger Goodell will suspend DeShaun Watson for the season. We'll see if that plays out. That's the biggest story in sports this morning. Welcome to the show. Appreciate you guys being here. Please, if you're here right now, give us a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. I want to remind everybody that we are sending a listener and a friend, a listener plus one, to Las Vegas to see BYU take on Notre Dame in the Shamrock Series. It is all presented to you by Devry Davis and Academy Mortgage. We're going to talk a lot of mortgage later in the show. Mortgage rates are way down. They plummeted Thursday and Friday. Call Devry Davis today at Academy Mortgage, 801-543-9666, NMLS number 278545. Devry Davis and Academy Mortgage are equal housing lenders. I'm telling you, Devry Davis is the guy you want to talk to about your mortgage.
Yep.
Whether you're here, New York, Zimbabwe, call Devry Davis today, 801-543-9666. Tell him you heard it from Monty. Tell him Monty told you to call. Mortgage rates plummeted. They are low. Yes, you can afford to buy a house. Yes, there is inventory. If you don't have cash for a down payment, Devry Davis and Academy Mortgage have programs for you to get you into a mortgage that you can afford, that you deserve for you and your family. Call them today, 801-543-9666. And how about our good friends at Barbecue Pit Stop, now on board the show? Welcome our newest partners in Logan, Lehigh, Layton, Salt Lake City, and St. George. bbqpitstop.com. September 17th, be there or be square. We are going to have a viewing party at the Barbecue Pit Stop in Lehigh. We'll have a TV there. We're going to have a bunch of wings and pizza there. And at halftime of the BYU-Oregon game, September 17th, we will pull the winner of the trip for two to see BYU and Notre Dame October 7th and 8th in Las Vegas. You get 2 nights at the Palm, 2 tickets to the game, and a $250 gas card to get you there. It is the BYU Notre Dame Shamrock Series Drive-Away presented by Devery Davis and Academy Mortgage and our good friends at Barbecue Pit Stop.
My guy.
Welcome to the
Let's
show.
go.
Really appreciate Devery Davis. Really appreciate Academy Mortgage and Barbecue Pit Stop. But again, you guys, you know the way the show works. We need you to give your business to our advertisers. We need you to go and see the guys at Barbecue Pit Stop. Every Barbecue Pit Stop location, and let me make sure that we put that up on the screen here for you. Logan, Lehigh, Layton, Salt Lake City, and St. George. Every one of those stores today will have a box. There's already one at Lehigh. This morning we will have one at Murray and Layton and Logan for you. All you have to do is go in, fill out a slip, drop it in the box to win the prize for the BYU Notre Dame Drive-Away. It's at every Barbecue Pit Stop store in the Valley. Make sure you go and say, hey, I found out about you guys on the Monty Show. Whether you need spices, whether you need a grill, a smoker, you name it, Barbecue Pit Stop's got it. There is a box on every counter of the Barbecue Pit Stops here in the Valley. Go in, fill it out, drop a slip in the box. That's the way the show works. We need you guys to support our advertisers so we can continue to talk Jazz and Knicks.